Hello, um, editing me back at it again. Putting the content warnings in the beginning, because I didn't think about it until later. But there are multiple stories that are very graphic in some aspects. And there's like one that I really want to bring up that's not listed on Storygraph, which is how we normally follow content warnings in this household. First of all, sexual content. Like every single one of these has at least one sex scene. So like there's sexual content. There's also one that is based around eating disorders. There's body horror, kind of expected. There is also animal death, and then the two that are, or yeah, I mean, there's two that are prominent in two separate stories in this book. So like, proceed with caution is rape and sexual assault. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'm gonna go finish editing this now.
Yes, also I found my science book from like 6th or 7th grade. Am I gonna do all the work in it? Yes.
That is hilarious.
There's two packets that are not done that are just shoved in the book. And then it's like one of the write-in books, so there's like little excerpts or whatever you want to call it inside the book as well. But also it's like I have like notebook paper shoved in at a certain point. I opened it. There's literally love robot lyrics written on the page. Like, okay, girl, we get it. You were sad. You were depressed. It did. Nothing's changed.
We love that.
That's probably
Okay. Welcome to the Fish and Flower podcast, where I have no energy. I'm Flower, aka Rose. What's my fun fact for the day? I'm so behind on my June reading already, and June's barely started. That's it.
My name is Fish, aka Stingray, and well, I've already read 10 books this month, and it's the 7th. But also, there's something else, but I forgot.
Yeah, that's how it goes for me.
We're backwards. I used to be only read like a few books. But granted, a lot of them have been really short, but still, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's like half my 2 hours this month. And I was reading when you called me. When I was the call, I was reading. Reading. I wish you all the best. I'm almost a quarter way through that. It's really good so far. I feel bad for them.
Listen, sometimes I can recommend good books.
Maybe you should do that more often, but like for yourself.
Honestly. So far this month, other than To Be Devoured, every book I've read so far this month has been 3 stars. And then I'm like, why am I? This is why. Anyways, this is very much a stream of consciousness podcast. We talk to each other on a daily basis. On today's episode, we're talking about Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. Which is the first ever story collection we are going to be talking about in this podcast. Very exciting. Which means the layout, I want to say, is going to be different. I'm going to give, like, the summary and what I think the themes are for each story, and then we can talk about it briefly, like what we individually rated each one, because I know we both individually rated each story and whatnot. Do you want to guess how many pages of notes I took?
I'm feeling a strong 5.
Let's see. The answer was so easy. Because it's, how many stories are in here? There's 8 stories, so there's 8. I just used a page for each one. Even if you like, take a whole page for a story, I would just go to the next page.
Anyways, I feel like I've never read a short story collection before. Mm-hmm. I've read short stories, obviously. I don't think I like short story collections.
It's an interesting time. This is the first ever one I read, if I remember properly. I read this right after COVID. Like, I started it before COVID and finished it the summer after COVID had started. If that gives you the vibe. It took me, I think it was that
Yeah,
January
you also
getting
like
that
the
June.
one, you know.
It was a good time.
I'm not gonna cut you very much for that.
But yeah, no, this is the first ever one I ever read, and I rated it 3 stars. Normally, I think I would have put on my DNF, or not my DNF, my unhaul pile. But I spent 16 of my hard-earned money on this book, so I'm keeping it. That being said, I do like her, is it a memoir? I don't know. She has, another book that I think you'd really, really enjoy, in the Dream House, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I tried to say, I know the name of it, and I tried to say it, but I just thought about Barbie, and I tried not to laugh because I don't remember it's like a serious thing. It's on my TV. Yeah.
I love that. But yeah, I rated this.
Driver in my hand right now, and I'm having thoughts about stabbing myself. I'm okay.
Oh, I just
don't actually
remembered
want to. It's just an interesting. Don't worry.
Okay. I just remember what my actual fun fact was supposed to be, which was that I'm obsessed with Xana now.
Real.
I listened to a lot of Xana while doing this.
Let's see. I started listening to her. I think she's like in my top 15 artists of all time on Spotify because
Interesting. I have the physical book, so there's I think added things in this.
What? Okay.
That weren't in the audio that I know you listened to, so I'm gonna bring those up because I thought they were interesting. I thought you'd like them. But before we go into that, originally when I first read this, I rated it 3 stars. It's still 3 stars. If I average out what I rated each of the stories this time, it would be a 3.18. Thankfully, when I did initially read it, I did highlight in the list of stories which ones were my favorites, which were Especially Heinous and Real Women Have Bodies. Hear me out. One of those was the lowest rated one this time. So.
Yeah. I rated it 3.5. I had Jericho do the math, so thank you, Jericho Bestie. You're so low for that. Because I can't do math. I didn't know how to do that. So I was like, Jericho, hey, Bestie, can you do some math? I was like, yeah. Look at this, Jericho. Also, me having intrusive thoughts about wanting to stab myself with a screwdriver really goes along with the theme because it is, in fact, a collection of horror stories.
Yes.
It's labeled as horror. But it's fine. We're fine.
But yeah, that's that. There's like 3 pages of like quotes from other people praising the book, right? And a lot of them are like are from like magazines and whatnot. No, it's 4 pages. Except when we get to the last page is author praises for it. And there's like a good few on here, but 2 stood out to me. First one being Roxane Gay, who is like a famous nonfiction author, who said these stories vibrate with originality, queerness, sensuality, and the strange. Which, yes, very true. And then the other one that I found interesting was by Jeff Vandermeer, who is the author of the weirdest horror-esque book I have ever read that has like sci-fi fantasy elements, and that was Annihilation. Which
I mean, I have to read it, huh?
I mean, I want to reread it because it's been like 4 years, and I don't know if I actually still like it as much as I did. But he called it strong, dangerous, and blisteringly honest. It's hard to think of it as a debut. It's that good. So, that's a fun fact. And then we go into, like, the dedication. And then there's 2 pages of lines written by Woman in the Past that she put before she started the book, right? Before the index. And the first one is by Jackie Germain. I thought these would be, like, really good to bring up. I thought you would really like these, and I was pretty sure they probably weren't in the audiobook. And so the first one by Jackie Germain is, My body is a haunted house that I am lost in. There are no doors, but there are knives and 100 windows.
Sorry. No, I did have the PDF, right, and I saw that, and I literally sent you a voice message screaming about it because I don't know if it's in the audio. I don't remember, but like I remember opening the PDF, and I was like, oh, I did read one of them like on the PDF. But, like,
That's good. The other one is by Elizabeth Hewer, and this was much shorter. But,
yeah.
it fits the vibe of the book, which is God should have made girls lethal when he made monsters of men.
Yes.
Which really fits into the first story we're going to talk about, the husband stitch.
2 seconds. 2 seconds. One, I do think this was amazing. Looking like overall. Secondly, she is very, very. I don't know their pronouns. They are very, very talented.
Yes.
Okay, she's very, very talented. It's kind of mind blowing. Thirdly, I feel like if the stories were ordered differently, it would overall it would be better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Why do we get like a quarter through the book and then we start, especially Heinous, and that's like another quarter of the book, just that one story, and then you go through a quarter of the book or almost a quarter of the book, and then you get to the other super long one that's about a quarter of the book. Like,
yeah. I wasn't feeling well when I started listening to Especially Reading, and because of found an audiobook.
yeah, I can imagine it took me over an hour to read that one.
It was split, like it cut like halfway through to go on to the next section. You know what I mean? I fell asleep as soon as that first section ended because I was feeling really bad, and I woke up. I was like, I don't want to finish the rest of this one, but I don't like skipping bits and books. So I was like, just play it, just listen to it. I tuned out half of it. Not gonna lie, it was especially his story, but like I liked it at first. But like, anyway.
Yeah, no, that one was interesting to write a summary for because a lot of stuff happens, but also nothing happens for most of it.
Real.
So that one's really interesting, just for that fact. I honestly believe a good half of it could have been cut out. Though I did look it up, because I will forget if I don't bring it up now. I did look it up, and they are like, you know how the layout is like the name of the episode, quote unquote, and then the almost like a summary of that episode, kind of, and then it goes to the next one. Those are actual names of actual episodes in those actual seasons.
I thought so.
Yeah. I wasn't 100% sure. I remember a few of them at least being that way when I looked it up when I first read it. I remember taking like a month-long break in between finishing that one because like it's so long. But we got time before we have to talk about this one. We have to talk about the husband stitch.
I really, really like this one.
Me too.
Did you explain it first and then we'll go into everything else?
Yeah. So, the husband stitch. I think almost every single one, except for especially Heinous, is, like, first person, as in, like, using I pronouns all the time. So when I will usually say a woman or she all the time, that usually means, the primary character that's based off of, or following. Unless if I say otherwise.
You don't learn them that often. I noticed that.
Yeah. So a woman meets a boy at a party and she kisses him. These are going to be very fast summaries, by the way. She gives him everything of herself and body. They marry when she turns 18. Over time, they have a son.
I did not know what this was going to start off with, and then it started off with this, and they're like, not even 5 minutes in, they were banging. I was like, whoa!
Yeah, there's a lot of sex in this. Like, at least every single one, there's at least one sex scene.
Well, reasonable, honestly. I don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah, they have sex a lot, blah, blah, blah. She asks him to marry him before she's even 18, all this stuff. Eventually, they have, not that long after they get married, she's pregnant, they have a son, but there's, like, trouble in the delivery, and so, there's like this whole thing where like if tearing can happen when you're giving birth because small hole, large head, and so because she didn't want a C-section, the doctor decides to cut her down there to make room. And so afterwards, the doctor comes in, or like the doctor's like sewing her up while she's like half drugged out from like pain medication and whatnot, and her husband brings up the husband stitch, and he was like apparent, like it's hinted that he looked it up beforehand to see if this hospital had it and whatnot, and the doctor says it will be like she's a virgin again, and then she passes out and she just assumes it's like her drugged out mind. Yeah, so the husband has a desire to throughout the story, the whole entire time, she has like this green ribbon around her neck. He has a constant desire, and when I mean desire, I mean it's like a sexual desire to touch this ribbon and take it off and whatnot. Despite her constantly saying no, like at one point she literally has to elbow him in the face to get him to stop.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I think it's supposed to be an allegory for consent and whatnot, but you know. Due to the birth, she can't have sex for a while, about a year, which is like kind of normal in Freezer. So she gets her husband off in other ways while she is just not getting off at all. As the son grows older, he, initially, when he's like a baby, he will like reach for the ribbon, but she understands it's just like an innocence type thing. It's like, has no deeper meaning, so she's fine with it, until at one point, while she's giving her husband a blowjob, I'm gonna have to do an intro thing before the book or even the episode even starts again, where I have to talk about content warnings. Where like she's going at it, and he starts playing with the ribbon on her neck, and she like freaks out, and she's like, no, stop, please stop, blah blah blah. And the son is like, I want to say like 6 or 7, is walking down the stairs and sees it. And so the next day he goes to reach for it and take it off like his father, and she has to distract him from it, and the way it's like insinuated is that their relationship is forever damaged, because she won't give him all of herself despite the fact that he is her son. She joins an art class after he starts going to school, and finds an attraction with one of the nude models. Great.
Wow.
Yeah, she's going to art class. She has a thing for the model. While there, we learn that like every woman and girl has a ribbon of her own. There's like one later on who has one on her pinky. I think the model has one on her toe.
Hear me out. If it was on like a finger or like ankle or what, etc., what's stopping you from taking it off? Because I feel like it would be fine if you lost a singular finger, right?
Yeah, true. So she like goes out to coffee with this woman. They have a conversation. She brings it up to her husband. She feels like bad that she hasn't told her husband about the attraction she has for this other woman. So she brings it up to him, and he starts banging her. He starts going at it, telling her his fantasy of her and him and the other woman and all this stuff. And she feels like she betrayed the other woman by giving away her attraction for her to her husband, who then used it and turned it and perversed it into his own fantasy. Yeah.
Tomato at the
I know, right? So she quits art class.
I wish she would have stayed in and just cheated on her husband, and we would have had a good time.
You know, so true.
Sometimes you can cheat on your husband with a woman. I don't know.
Time passes. The son grows up, goes to college, and marries his own girl. So despite fighting against her husband's desire to touch and remove her ribbon, she eventually lets him do it. He like is moaning and groaning like he's getting off as he's like slowly untying it and whatnot, and she's just watching him, and then she's like, "I love you," and his head falls off.
Like, I knew what was going to happen for obvious reasons. It's a very popular,
yeah,
whatever you can call it, but still, that was just like, oh my god.
So the themes I got from it, I tried to figure out 3 themes for each of them. There's like this whole thing where throughout the whole entire story, she would like be reiterating stories she would tell as a child or she heard as a child, and like stories she would tell her own child and stuff like that. So the importance of storytelling, the detriment of men's desires, and how giving everything of yourself to a man will destroy you were the three themes I got from that one. I rated that one 4 stars.
I also rated it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
I also have thoughts and opinions. Should I go ahead and state my thoughts and opinions?
Go for it.
Okay, you know how throughout the book it has like instructions? Because at one point, like for example, her kid goes to touch her ribbon and she's like, no, she has to teach him not to like mess with it. So she shakes a can of pennies and it's like, if you're reading this to someone, get a soda can full of pennies ready beforehand to shake it in their face and watch them blah 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 blah, right?
Mm-hmm.
That reminded me so much of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the whole first story, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Obviously, I like that other women had ribbons too, and not just her. I like that that's like a thing in this universe wherever we're taking place. You know, I don't know. It was obvious because like the ribbon thing is like a known thing, but I like that it was obvious. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's all the thoughts.
Okay.
Wait. And there's also, you know, the one story that she tells throughout it with the river and stuff? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure there's literally a Scary Story to Tell in the Dark story about someone stealing a liver from some place, like, you know, and then feeding it to their family.
Interesting.
Did you ever read those?
It's been a long time since I read that book, so.
Listen, those were imprinted in my brain. You know the type of content I consume.
Yes, that's why I thought you read this book.
No, I really did. I think that's partially why. I'm not gonna tell you why. I think that's partially why I want to read like actual horror now.
Mm.
And I've just been watching a lot of desert content as well, because I'm just in that type of mood lately. For someone who likes thrillers and horrors as much as I do, I don't read that much of it. It's weird.
I feel that. I like mystery thrillers, but I rarely read a mystery thriller. But that's because I always read one I don't like, and then I just put them back down and don't read one for months and months and months.
The Wizard thing is labeled as a thriller, but in my head it's just pain.
Experienced.
I'm so excited to read it. Okay, we're good. Are we gonna?
Okay. The next one is called Inventory. A lot of these have gimmicks in them. This one is she likes to make lists. That's like how she tips things. So the whole entire story is a list of all her sexual encounters. So it'll be like 1 woman blank, 2 woman blank, 1 woman, 1 boy blank, blah blah blah, that type of thing. Throughout the whole entire thing, and it'd be like blocks of text and whatnot. So the book is throughout her whole entire, well, like most of her life, from adolescence, from when she first had sexual experience to through her
has experiences. There's like multiple people in the first couple times. Like
yeah, all the way to adulthood. When an epidemic takes place, it's not like described exactly what the epidemic is, like you get red eyes and you eventually die. So, the way this was written before COVID, and I read it right before COVID.
Yeah, and I read it after. I was like, oh, I was just like, okay, mystery sickness go up, I guess.
So, throughout all these stories, she marries some woman, she meets in fear of, like, being alone, and, the woman makes her cry, and then wants to have sex with her while she's crying and all this stuff, and because of it, she feels betrayed and whatnot, so, she gets divorced. I think it starts in, like, somewhere in, like, Nevada area, and she slowly, progressively moves further east up into Maine, which is kind of near where I am. Fun fact, she does, like, Vermont is mentioned in multiple, I think 2 or 3 of these stories. So.
Because it's not, like, really gay or whatever.
Yes. I mean, she mentions Mary Oliver in one of them, and Mary Oliver is a lesbian poet from Vermont. So, and I've met her multiple times before she died. So,
What?
well, she was in her 70s. She was like an old age, like classic poet. Like everyone knows a lot of her poetry because she's like a classic majorist poet.
I said what? That last sentence you said before I said what?
Okay. So she eventually settles in
No, what
Maine.
did you know? What did you say? You said something before she died.
I met her multiple times.
I thought that's what you said. I'm not gonna lie, I was messaging someone.
Okay. Anyways, the character settles in Maine.
You've met so many people. I feel like you've met so many weird ass people. Not weird ass people, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
I got it.
She settles in this like little beach house near the coast. And eventually the landlord stops depositing her rent, so she just assumes he died. While she's living there, many refugees and people who are trying to make it up to Canada, where they've heard it's better, come by. And so she meets many new people. No matter how well she gets with these people. So, like, there's, like, a couple, two women she meets who are a couple, and the three of them get together, and they, like, want her to go with them, but she won't leave with them. A few times she, like, invites people to stay, they won't go, or they won't stay, they will only go. There was a preacher of a cult type thing who she fell in love with. She ended up having a bad omen dream. So she was like, I have to leave. Please come with me. You will rule with me. And she's like, no, I gotta stay. So that's like a thing going on.
So I said bad omens, and now I have.
Yeah, I knew as soon as I said it.
I can wait for you, everybody.
Okay. So an older woman does eventually stay with her. Who they fall in love. They walk along the beach and have conversations. They could usually let more refugees in to stay and settle down for a day or two to rest. But eventually, bad luck, the disease catches up to them. She gets sick. So the main character, takes her supplies on this little buoy boat thing and rows out to this like little island that the tide is always constant. So like you can't walk to it ever. You have to row to it. And the closest boat is her boat that she's taking out, and she already set up a bunch of emergency supplies there. So she rows out to it, and she just sits there for the rest of her life and watches the coast. As she makes more lists. And that's how it ends. It ends with her watching it. She's watching.
You know, sometimes you just have to watch the whatever for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah. I don't know. So themes I got from this one were the importance of human connection, how we act different and are different people with other different people. Like, you're a different way with one person than you are with another person. And solitude versus survival.
Makes sense. What did you rate this one?
I also rated this one 4.
Oh, well, I rated it 3.5 because my only thought was the end because I honestly had no thoughts at the end. That's the common theme for a lot of these. I just had no thoughts.
I initially did rate it 3.5.
Some of these are really profound, and I'm just like, I'm not big-brained enough to understand this.
I mean, I think that's why I did like it more this time around, despite the fact that I rated it the same, the book in general, because I was going into the themes a lot for, like, taking notes. I was, like, actually having to think about it with my big brain. So.
You had to put that degree to use or something? I don't know.
Okay, what are your thoughts on that one?
All I said was damn. That's all I wrote down. 3.5 and damn.
Next up is...
Some of the ones I don't have any thoughts written down, so...
I love that for you. Which one of these is like actually a whole entire fucking page to the point where I got out a sticky note to put down extra things and put on the page.
I'm excited about the next one. I think it's my favorite.
Okay, mothers. So this is about a woman and her partner named Fad. So the
Yeah. Before we get into it, I feel like bad today was actually something else. But because of how everything went down, I feel like she just calls her bad because it's like a bad thing and not like
yes,
I don't think that's her actual name, which
yeah.
I she's so real for that. You know, sometimes someone just does you so dirty, traumatizes you so badly that you can't even call them by their actual name. You have to call them weird things like
Yeah.
that. Or magical. It's fine. We're normal in our heads. We don't need psychological help.
Are you sure about that?
We're getting Santa 50.
Um, so it starts with Bad giving the main character a baby. Uh, so she's all like, "What am I supposed to do?" And Dad just believes. Bad's like, "I carried this baby. You take care of it now."
Who
Um,
got a bad person? That's the question.
um, so the baby won't stop crying. Like she doesn't have proper food for the baby. She doesn't have proper bed for the baby. At one point, she sets up like a bunch of pillows in her own bed, to like put up walls for the baby to have a bed in her bed and all this stuff. But she doesn't have like any of the proper stuff. Um, so as time is passing and she's trying to take care of this baby, uh, we see flashbacks of her relationship with Bad, which initially everything was good. They were happy, and she daydreamed of their future, which happens to be opposite of what's happening currently. Like, she'll be like, there's like a page and a half to 2 pages of the daydream world having a completely filled fridge with all this stuff and whatnot, and then it cuts to her trying to find out, like, figure out what to feed the baby, and she opens up her own fridge, and she's like, I got applesauce.
Honestly, I really put a contrast between like the daydream and the reality of everything, and it's so vivid and distinct between both of them. And God, this one is so perfect. Like it's just so perfect. Okay, like
Um, in her daydream, they have a daughter named Mara.
obviously I
She
lost my mind about. Sorry,
so
me.
out on limb, she just calls the baby Mara, and she does look at her in a certain way afterwards, so she thinks the baby is Mara. Good
Can
times.
can can I say something about the name Mara?
Mhm.
Um, obviously it freaked out. One because Mara died, but like, Mara means bear. But also, I'm pretty sure there's a thing um, about it. Like I don't know. It just means like it's just like I'm sorry. I'm normal.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Continue.
Um. So over time, eventually the relationship turns sour with Bad. Like a professor, she's like on the phone in the bathroom in a bathroom stall with Bad, and it's so loud that a professor like can overhear it and like calls her and is like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, do you need help?" And there's like a part in the wall where like her head was bashed in to the wall where she was like thrown against the wall by Bad. So it becomes emotionally and physically abusive. And so at one of the points, she like when she gets thrown against the wall, she locks herself in the bathroom and turns on the shower because she's like, I'm a Cancer, I love water. And so she just stands in the shower, daydreaming of her daydream, uh, of what she wanted the future to be, and basically Mars like a coping mechanism at that point. And while she's thinking about this, she's also walking to the house that is the one in the daydreams with the baby. And she's there, and she like calls the dog by its name and pets it, and it lets her in. Um, and she enters the house, and she's going around, and she goes into the fridge to find something to feed Mara, right? Or the baby. When a family shows up, including
Mm-hmm.
her daydream daughter, Mara, and son, I believe his name's Tristan. The
Mm-hmm.
family takes the baby out of her hands, and it's insinuated in her attempts to cope from abuse, she's been stalking this family and pretending the children were hers until she kidnapped the baby.
I can't lie. I did not understand any of it at all. I don't. That's a common thing in between a lot of these. The ending goes right over my head most of the time. But there's just something about this one that's just like, I don't know. I, I don't know what it is about me that this one is my favorite out of every single one in the book. I'm okay.
I rated this one 3 stars. The themes are kind of obvious. It's like abusive relationships, daydreaming versus reality, and when daydreaming goes too far, kind of obvious.
That's who I am as a person and I think about this story.
I mean, yeah, it's an unreliable narrator, and you're you.
Also, there's a baby named Mara. Women with the women, But also, there was the one part when it was like a flashback during the good times, and they're like having. But here's the thing: I was listening to the audiobook out loud, and I was retaping the cardboard around my mom's AC on her window and like putting insulation up so like the air doesn't come through, I mean, granted, my mother was in the garage, but it was kind of funny.
All right. Do you have any thoughts about Mothers?
It's beautiful and perfect, and I love it. And oh my God, why is it? It was just, oh my God, it was so good. It was yes.
Okay. Next up is Especially Heinous, the one I'm pretty sure we both have most amount of thoughts on.
Tomato.
Yeah, that's generally the vibe. This is aka the SVU one, which is so hilarious. I loved it so much when I first read it, but this time around I rated it 2.5 stars. Hilarious. I also put in parentheses when I next to the star rating I put too long, a quarter of the freaking book. Like, why is one story a quarter of the book?
Yeah, I was like, it was fun at first, but it got old fast. It's like too long. Those are my thoughts about it.
But yeah, this is called episodic summaries based on SVU, the TV show. Which, I mean, I'm gonna do a thing like I did for To Be Devoured, where I go in after I edit it and be like, okay, these are all the content warnings at the very beginning. But basically, this is the one that is mostly the rape and assault because SVU. A lot of the book or a lot of the story is commentary on how victims are treated versus how perpetrators are treated. Like, there's one where the judge is like, oh, you're a nice guy, go on home. And it's just like, hello, but also believable. Like, it's actually, and it pisses me off. If it wasn't so long, this could be so good. So, it's like 60 pages, and they're like told like episodic summaries, so like, there's a lot there, but almost none of it is important. So eventually, what happens is the ghosts of victims who never found justice, that have bells for eyes, with their only form of communication, come to Benson. They start showing up to her. She learns Morse code so she can understand what they're saying when they try to talk to her with their bells for eyes. Also, Benson and Stabler can hear a heartbeat below the city.
What does that mean? What was going on there?
I will explain it. Yeah. Stabler may be able to see the future. I'm not sure about it. There's like this thing where there's this priest who, like, while he was giving a sermon, he started freaking out. And you learn it's because he can see the future because his girlfriend, who was the first and only woman he ever loved, literally was like, "Hell, I love you." They, I assume, made love. I don't know. And then she literally jumped off a roof. Well, she kneeled off a roof actually, and died. And it's insinuating that because of all this other magic stuff happening, that's all happening at the same time. When he touched her, he got this ability to see the future. And when Stabler and Benson showed up, Stabler went to help him out. When he was like freaking out, so he touched him, and so it's insinuated that he also can see the future because there's another girl who was like an intern at the police, who goes and talks to the priest and also touches him, and she can then see the future, and so then she does a bunch of stuff because of being able to see the future. So I think he can see the future. I don't know.
Don't ask me, but I don't know what's going on in half these stories.
a new DA comes up, and she instantly falls for Benson. Um, and then there's doppelgangers named Abler and Henson, who seem to know what's happening, like what's all happening with all the magical stuff, but also like seem to be like going to cases pretending to be Benson and Stabler, and then Benson and Stabler will show up to like question a family member of a victim, or go to a crime scene, and they'll be like, "Weren't you already here?" Or "I already told you everything. Leave me alone."
Okay,
So
but wait,
yeah.
when I first heard, what are the doppelgangers' names again?
Henson and Abler.
Yeah. When I first heard Hinton and Abler, I thought I heard it wrong, so I had to go back in the audiobook. I was like, what the hell are they talking about? And then I realized, oh, okay. That's what's going on here.
So Henson and Abler want to get close to Benson and Stabler. God, say that 5 times fast. So when they do that, because the DA is obsessed and basically in love with Benson. Henson, because they look very similar, ends up sleeping with the DA continuously. Like, the DA is just skipping work. I don't know how she still has a job. So that she can spend the time just having sex with Henson, and then Henson will tell her stories, and it's insinuated that stories are explaining what's happening in the world right now, right? One of the stories is of an old god that the city rests on that requires sacrifices, and that's what the heartbeat is under the...
I'm sorry, you want to repeat that for me, Dusty? You want to run that by me again?
There's an old god / beast, and the city is riding on its back, and that's what the heartbeat is under the ground.
That's normal. Yeah, so much stuff went over my head.
There's so much stuff in this one. It's fucking bonkers.
Yeah. I'm so I know what's going on in the literature I consume.
Abler stalks Stabler's family. He like pretends to be his older brother. All this stuff. He didn't even know he had until he called up his mom, and he was like, hey, he like goes to one of his kids' schools and is like, hey, I'm your Uncle E, and she's just like, cool. And then he shows up to the house and enters the house, and his wife is like, or no, he shows up at the doorstep, and the wife just comes home and assumes it's her husband. So she opens up the door for him, thinking that he lost his keys, but then she recognizes, wait a second, there's something odd, and freaks out. And he just goes running, and Stabler, there's like a bunch of stuff. Basically, he isn't Uncle E, he's Abler, the doppelganger. Uncle E is his older brother that no one knew about, who went to jail for rape and then died.
Hold on. To that. Imagine just opening the door to your spouse and you're standing there for a second just looking at them because something feels off. And then you realize you're looking at a freaking doppelganger. But also, since their names aren't exactly the same, what is Abler's first name?
Yeah, that's a real question.
And what is Hinson's first name? That's
at one point, Henson steals. I don't know how she's able to steal the ghost girl's bells for eyes, like bell hammers, so they can't like actually communicate with Benson anymore. Because Benson, when she tries to touch them, she can't like physically do it, and then when she gives her back like the hammers by like just stuffing them all on her bed, when she tries to pick them up to give them back to the girl, it doesn't work. Like her hand just goes through it, so I don't know how she's able to do it, but she does. So in order to let them communicate with her, Benson lets all the girls possess her body, and so while she's just walking around city or doing her job or doing anything, literally going on dates with men, and whatnot, she is having their memories. She's having conversations with them. They're telling her their stories, what happened to them, and whatnot. When she dreams of what happened to them, combined with her normal dreams, which includes having sex with Stabler. Yeah. If I think Carmen Maria Mercado chips Benson and Stabler. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah. I guess she's real for that. I mean, they kind of, I don't know. I mean,
one of the girls in the very beginning does possess her body and then goes up to him and kisses him and then leaves. Yeah. And he's like, hey, I shouldn't leave you on. Like, I kind of like you, but, like, I'm married. Like, we shouldn't, even though, like, I let you kiss me. And she's like, we kissed? Like, hello? At this point,
No,
Benson
because why
does.
didn't he be like, yeah, like, why didn't he have a reaction to her be like, what the hell, that happened?
Yeah, no, that's weird. Maybe he assumed it was one of the doppelgangers. Like the doppelganger who kissed him.
Yeah.
That makes sense. She does try to kidnap Henson and then try to kill her and Abler, but it doesn't work. The bullets don't work on them. And then she gets in trouble because like there's missing bullets from her gun, and like that's like an actual thing where they check a detective's like gun, ballistics and bullets like every once in a while, so like they would notice that. So Benson does end up killing Henson and Abler eventually because there's like this whole thing where there's these hunters that also ship Stabler and Benson, so they try to get them together and a bunch of other things. And in order, so they can tell something's going on, they summon the devil, and then the devil takes one of them captive, and then one of the interns feels really bad, so Benson notices something weird's going on, so sends her to the priest who can see the future, so then he touches her so that she can see the future, and she figures out like, a way to make it so Benson can kill Henson, and Abler does something, like puts some weird thing on Benson's gun, so that she can do it, and then when she does shoot them, they actually die, and they're like, how? When I say there's a lot of things that happen, that was like a whole entire, like, 6 pages spread out throughout the whole entire story, so, like...
Yeah. Honestly, I forgot about the devil thing, that the other people, what is it?
I didn't write that part down, that was just in my brain.
You know what I mean. I forgot about that, so when you said that, I was like, oh. I forgot about that section right there that you just ran through.
So Benson does tell Stabler about the ghost girl, and he like instantly believes her, and so they start working together based off of the dream she has and what the girls tell her, slowly catching all these criminals, all these perpetrators. And each time they get justice, the girl ghost moves on and leaves Benson's body. So like as more and more, they catch more and more. Like at one point they catch like 12 in one day. Like, it's fucking wild. One time, she's on OkCupid trying to find a date, and she finds one of the guys.
That's kind of funny, but not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I literally, when I turned down the wrong phone. You were kind of loud there for a second, and I literally turned down the volume on the wrong phone.
That's hilarious. So, they continuously do that for a bit, and then the last one leaves her body. She, accepts there will be more eventually, like, as more victims happen, they will enter her body, and she will solve that crime too. But instead of having, like, hundreds in her at once that she's trying to solve, it will be every once in a while type thing. But she, at this, like, during this point, her and the DA leaves Henson because she's like, you're not the real Benson. And then befriends Benson. And then at this point, she lets the DA in officially, and they kiss and make love and a bunch of other things and start a relationship of letting someone else in since there's no more ghost girls in her body. And Stabler leaves. So the themes of this one are how victims are silenced, the importance of listening and believing, and the importance of letting others in. And I rated this one 2.5 stars. I already talked about that, but yeah.
Yeah. Also, I feel like there's the whole thing of being haunted of the idea of what happens to women, you know?
Mhm.
And what's happened to you as a woman, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Man, I love being a woman.
Don't worry, there's more. The last one really hammers at home how much it's great to be a woman. That one was so wild. How did I not remember that one? At one point, I was like, did I, like, not read the last story in this book the last time I read it? Because, like, I didn't remember it at all. It was a good time.
I liked the last one.
I liked it, too. The rest of these I rated 3 stars.
I don't know. Hold on. The next one, I rated 3 stars.
Real women have bodies?
Yes, I rated it 3 stars, and I will, honestly, I don't even know. I had no thoughts after it, really.
Yeah. So she works at like an expensive dress store called Glam. This is Real Women Have Bodies, and I felt like I wasn't doing it. I don't know what's my brain anymore. So it's like a prom dress store in the mall.
The
Over
dresses were really
time,
pretty.
over the past few years, women and girls have started turning translucent and disappearing, and no one knows how and what happens to them afterwards and all this stuff. The daughter of one of the seamstresses is dropping off dresses. Her name's Petra, and invites her to her place, which is her father's motel run by her seamstress mother. They bang. And then after they bang, they're laying in bed, and she mentions to Petra that she finds it cruel when her coworker messes with the dresses. Um, and Petra assumes she already knows something, so she takes her out back to show the like room where her mom is like sewing up the dresses, and there's like a bunch, like 50 something translucent women willingly getting sewn into the dresses as her mother is just sitting there, like standing there sewing them in, and they're just like cool, having a good time. Like they're purposely wanting to have this happen to them.
I'm
Obviously,
sorry, but imagine like having someone sew your essence, your soul, whatever we want to describe this as, into a dress. Like, just imagine that for a moment. But
yeah.
also imagine Steve. Kind of, you know. I would also
Obviously
say
she's
that.
freaked out, so she leaves. And then the next day she quits work. Like she can't stop staring at them now that she knows. She also starts like looking at other things in like shop windows and seeing if she can see girls in them as well, and all this stuff. Um, but she moves in with Petra at the motel and starts working as a janitor at nights. They're happy together for like a good chunk of time. Like a lot of time passes where they're happy together until Petra starts becoming translucent herself over a few weeks, months. It takes a bit for it to like fully take effect. Um, During this time, men think the Invisible Woman are terrorists because they're messing with the electronics now.
I would also mess with electronics if I was.
That's what Petra was like. That's such a mood. I love that. And I was like, you know what? If I was a translucent woman and no man saw me, I too would just mess with their money because they're messing with ATMs. That's one of the main things.
That was so loud. Oh my lord.
Oh my
We don't
god.
need it in this conversation.
I can tell your headphones died.
Sorry, bestie.
I can always tell every time. It's really funny. They go out to a bar, but Petra has to take multiple tries to grab anything like her mug of beer, the dart that they're playing darts with and whatnot, a coin. Since her hands are sometimes invisible now, like they just start turning translucent occasionally. So she gets freaked out by this at one point, and she's like, I get it. She takes one of the darts, that takes her like multiple tries to get out of the wall, and stabs herself in the hand like 3 times with it. Which like I get, if your hand is turning invisible, I too would probably stab my hand.
Me too. Yeah. I love how we're on the same page with that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it like makes sense. She tries to take Petra to the hospital, but she's like, no, so she bandages it up herself. But over time it gets so bad that one night while sleeping, she falls right through Petra. And they both start freaking out, and Petra kicks her out. She's like, you gotta go. It's time. Bye. And kicks her out. So she's distraught, and she breaks into the dress store and starts ripping up the dresses to free all the sewn-in girls. But they won't leave. Like, she's yelling at them to leave, telling them to get out of there, telling them that they're free, and they just stand there. And then the security guard comes by and sees her and tackles her, and as she's getting like arrested, they're just all just standing there solemnly, and that's how it ends. The themes were female bodies insecurities, men not trusting / believing women, and maybe being silenced by the fashion industry. I don't know, but also just like being invisible in general to like the male population when it comes to like a lot of shit. Good times. Thoughts, opinions, go.
I don't even know, bestie. Like, I feel like the majority of that went right over my head. I thought it was cool. It was kind of, and I liked Petra as a character and all that. I don't know.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. The next one is 8 bites. Wait a second. I wrote it down as 8 bodies, and I'm pretty sure it's actually 8 bites because that's automatically what I said. Yeah, it's 8 bites.
8 bites.
I don't know why I wrote it down as 8 bodies. That's fine. So it opens up with the main character being in surgery, like a surgeon in her abdomen and a bunch of stuff, and then it goes back to in time to when she decided to get the surgery. She remembers how like she wonders how she got to this point in her life and how her sisters had the same issue when her mother, she remembers, would only have 8 bites at every meal and then stop. Um Hence the name. Her 3 sisters have already gone to surgery. She considers that she was never a large woman until she had her daughter, whose name is Cal. Since the surgery, her sisters never eat a full meal, no matter where they go out and all that fun stuff. She blames her weight on no self-control. She goes out to a quote-unquote last meal. At this point, the 3 sisters have basically moved into her house to, like, take care of her post-surgery because it's, like, supposed to be really painful afterwards and all this stuff. And so, she, like, even compares it to having a last meal like people on death row. And at this last meal, she's, like, eating oysters and truffle fries. The 3rd sister, I assume the younger sister, shows up and, sits with her and talks with her about everything, trying to like help her because she's a little nervous and whatnot, and she's like describe to me the food, which to me would be a hint: don't go through the surgery. She decides to call her daughter Cal, to tell her that she's getting the surgery, and Cal just yells at her and says like, how could you do this, all this stuff, and then hangs up on her. The next day she goes into the surgery, and she like is in so much pain she can't do stairs, so she's like sleeping on the couch. The sisters are taking care of her, and then eventually like she gets better, they leave. And she notices a person-shaped blob in her house watching her. So she calls up her sisters and asks about it. And each of them give like a different answer. They're like, yes, this was a thing. Mine was like my I don't know, my joy. I don't remember what the second one was. And then the third one, the one that she most relates with, is like, it was my shame. But eventually it will leave and you won't notice it anymore, right? Cal calls her up from her therapist's office and asks if she hates Cal's body too, since they have similar bodies, while she's crying. The main character just hangs up on her. She finds the blob in the basement one day, and she starts like kicking it, beating it up, ripping it apart, like literally ripping it to shreds. But it doesn't die. Seasons pass, it becomes spring, as everyone's out and like in this small town talking and whatnot, people are like complimenting her on her new body. She notices that when she leaves and comes back, there will be like trinkets on the counter, like presents, and things will be cleaned up, like coffee stains and whatnot, so it's assumed that the blob is trying to take care of her the best way it can, and get along with her. And then it jumps to the day that she dies. I don't fully understand what happens here, but basically, the blob comes to her room, picks her up, and carries her away, while she apologizes for not knowing. And then the themes, obviously the societal pressure about beauty standards, passing down insecurities to daughters, and regret. Honestly, most of the time I was reading this, I was remembering that episode of Doctor Who where there's this pill that you take that like erases your fat, and then it literally like little fat babies come out of you, and then like some people have an adverse effect, so they turn all into fat babies, and then the fat babies are taken by this woman who calls herself the mother of all these fat babies. I was just remembering that the whole time.
What the hell, Misty?
I'm a normal.
Honestly, I have thoughts and opinions about this story. I give it 3 stars. I don't know. We should go through this tangent.
You can if you want.
obviously, first off, their mother was obviously disordered to begin with,
Yes.
and that was already established in everybody's character moving forward, hence the surgery and afterwards, anyways. But also passing that along to your kid because Cal's like, oh, we have similar bodies, but you're doing something so drastic to change it. So how do you feel about me? Why, like, which is very understandable to be like, why, especially as someone who has a mother who says the same things, who has a similar body to said mother. It's like, what about me then? What about me? It's fine. Um, the way we pass down these disordered thoughts and feelings throughout generations is very distressing and disgusting and very sad because, for example, my grandma is like 80 years old. She's still very much displaying disordered thoughts and behaviors, and it's very, very sad to see.
Yeah.
Eating disorders are not fun. They're disgusting and the literal devil, and they will kill you. So please seek help if that's where you are in your life. Please seek help. Please seek help. Okay. Sorry to be all serious.
I mean, yeah, when I do I'm going to have to do a thing like I did with To Be Devoured and be like, hey, there's themes of rape and assault and lots of sex and abusive relationships and eating disorders, and it's going to be a good time.
I love how you looked at this book with all of these trigger warnings and like, that is such a Stingray book. Stingray should read this. Granted, it was already on my TBR, but like, still, it's funny. You know me so well.
I do know you so well.
I would hope so. We've been friends for a very long time now.
We have.
Okay, I'm ready for the next one.
You ready for the next one? Okay. So the next one is The Resident. The second longest one, just short of the SVU one, at 50 pages. Let me tell you, this is the one that is so long that like it took up the whole entire page, and I had to write more things down that like I found interesting and hints at things, but like didn't have enough space on the page, so I wrote it on a sticky note. So that's fun. I should get my water ready because I'm gonna need it. So the main character got accepted to this residency program thing and has a weird drive up these mountains that she used to like kind of near where she lives, where she grew up. She used to be a Girl Scout, and that's where they camped for it and all this stuff, so she kind of knows the drive pretty well. It is an artist retreat she's going to, and she's going for writing. Along the drive, she runs over a white rabbit, and when she checks on it, it's like underneath her car, but only the bottom half is. No one like where's or the top half's underneath her car. Where's her bottom? Where's the bottom half? Yeah. So there's like a bunch of other things, like a weird run-in with a cop, like her noticing weird bumps on multiple people's faces. Yeah. Which will come into play later. The retreat is on a mountain. I already talked about this. She meets, there's basically five other main characters. So there's Lydia, the poet-composer. Bitch, no one knows what that is. Benjamin, a sculptor, Anel, the photographer, Diego, the illustrator, he illustrates like children's books and whatnot, I believe, but he's also writing a graphic novel at this point. And a painter who looks familiar, but every time she says something or her name, it exits, the character's mind. So they have like a communal dinner thing. That's when they all get together for the most part. She drinks wine, which she normally doesn't do. Someone just gives her wine. She just accepts it because she doesn't know how to say no to it. And while she's sitting there at dinner, she realizes she hates Lydia. She almost immediately gets sick for a few days, like some weird flu thing. Afterwards, when she's mostly okay, the painter gives her some weird pills that like change colors depending what way you look at them, and they don't have like any numbers or writing on them and all this stuff. So she does a smart thing. I don't know. She does the smart thing and flushes them.
Yeah, if someone just handed me, if a very recent acquaintance handed me any pill whatsoever, even if it was, like, obviously ibuprofen or something, I would not take that. No way. No way. That's the one in the trash can. I don't care.
She starts planning out her novel when she gets to the cabin. So there's like the lodge hotel where they all like sleep and eat. But then there's like little cabins. And in these cabins is where everyone does their work, right? So when she gets there, there's like a ledger type thing, like they're common for hotels and stuff. To like sign your name and what day and what you're there for. And while she's there, she's like, wait a second, my name's already written here. That's weird. And then moves on. From that, yeah. So after that, after her first day, I'm pretty sure she gets weird pustule growths on her thighs, and so she decides to sanitize a safety pin and pop them. Um, yeah.
Why was that her bright idea? Like, that's so gross. Like,
and then,
the whole thing.
And then there's like pus like growing out of it, and then they start gushing blood. So she like has to use a bunch of toilet paper to like stop the bleeding, and then she puts band-aids on them. When she first got there, Annelle was like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing where I take portraits of all the artists that come. So like I'd like to do one of you," and she eventually agrees to it. So the next day, Anella shows up to the cabin when she's writing and is like, "Hey, time for my portrait." She notices that a storm's coming in, but Anella's like, "It's fine." They set up next to the lake. She's like, "Okay, take off your clothes and wrap yourself up in this like sheet, and then pretend to be dead on the ground. And I will take a photo of you." Basically, she's like, follow the chair and just stay in that position. And she like feels weird about it, but she does it. And she eventually like finds like peace in doing this and whatnot. It will come up later. It's kind of really important. She starts taking walks around the lake around lunchtime. And when she does that, she gets to this point where there's a boat. I think I know the like where she remembers it from at that point, but she remembers it as his like same lake from when she was a Girl Scout. She like didn't think it was the same exact one, but it is. Also on one of these walks, she finds a lost Girl Scout that is up there, and so she takes her back to the Girl Scout camp and all that stuff. Um, there's like a whole bunch of stuff about like the meaning of brownies from Girl Scouts and all that fun stuff. It's not really important. She catches Lydia and Diego banging on the dining table after sleepwalking. Her wife hasn't replied to any of her letters. The pustules come back, but they're in like more places. They all do a showcase that she's nervous about. And after seeing Annelle's portrait of her, she feels betrayed. Like her boob is like out, and you can like see all these band-aids and all this stuff. And she's like, I thought this was. She didn't even know like the getting naked and being in a sheet was gonna be a thing. She thought it was just gonna be like a basic portrait, and then it like becomes like it's actually like supposed to be part of the series that she's like making a big deal out of and all this stuff. And she's like, hello. Um, so, she reads out a passage of her book that everyone claps for, but at the meal afterwards, Lydia says it's just a basic trope being done again, and she knows no characters like that, at which, the main character tries to explain the character is a representation of herself, that Lydia is hating on. She's all like, this isn't, like, a real person, it's, like, very reminiscent of gothic horror, and especially women of gothic horror, and she's like, haven't you, like, aren't the crazy woman in the attic tropes like overdone at this point? Like it's one not like good looking, but also like who cares anymore and all this stuff. And she's like, this is literally about me. This is me as a character that you're hating on. Like, please don't.
Literally, when that part happened, I was like, absolutely not Lydia. Like, I was like, I would react the exact same way as our main character because,
Yeah.
How can you write anything without it being and not have self-insert?
Yeah. So everyone else just changes the subject. So I think it's the next day she takes a break from writing. At one point, like stands up to walk around. I get it. And she finds the bottom half of the rabbit on her doorstep. Like it's assumed the same rabbit that she ran over on her way there. she's obviously freaked out, so once she eventually calms down, she, like, wraps it up, and she goes to take it into the kitchen. I don't know why she takes it in the kitchen. I think it's to be like, hey, to, like, everyone else and be like, what, look at what I found. And one of the guys is like, it's probably just, like, an owl dropped it there, but Lydia's there, and she starts freaking the fuck out, and she's like, you are crazy, you're fucking crazy, everything you do is crazy, you just stare at people, and you're crazy, and all this stuff, and she
See, I don't understand, like, why Lydia was all like, you're crazy. Like, be so serious, bestie. You're the crazy one. Why are you so fucking dramatic? Like, be so serious.
Which basically is what the main character does. She's like, one, like, why are you calling me crazy? You're basic just calling someone who's slightly different from you crazy. And also, like, I don't have shame in who I am. This is just who I am, and I do not care about your opinions on me. I am a person who has feelings, and my craziness, as you call it, is who I am. So, yeah. She goes off on her very...
Our main character was so wrong for that, you know?
Yeah. Diego, it, like, takes care of Lydia while Benjamin, like, pulls the main character aside, is like, hey, you okay? She's like, I don't fucking know. So, blah, 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 blah. I'm doing this from memory, so I'm looking at my notes to be like, where was I? So, later that night at dinner, she learns Lydia has left. At which point the painter says some people aren't made out for this, which surprises her, because she remembers it, and she asks again, and the painter says it again, and she's like, did you, like, quote that from something? She's like, no, like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I'm fucking understanding what the painter is saying, and so she, like, freaks out. She says something about not being afraid because she's not afraid anymore, and then she runs out, and Benjamin tries to chase after her and be like, hey, stop, and maybe try to explain or something, so, but, like, she doesn't, and she races home in her car, and can't remember if her wife is her wife. Like, she gets home, and then she's like, wait a second, is this my neighborhood? Wait a second, is this my wife? That looks like my wife, but how do I remember if my wife is my wife? Yeah. Another thing that happens, that's, like, how it ends, but another thing that happens that I think kind of connects to the lake is when, she was a Girl Scout. There was, like, this one bully who was the daughter of, like, the adult there, right? And the bully, like, made fun of her because, like, there was, like, this whole thing where, like, they kissed next to the lake. And while, the main character was into it, the bully was like, no. And all the other girls saw it, and so, because she sleepwalks, to make fun of her, they, like, direct her around in the woods so she gets lost in her sleep. And whatnot, and then she wakes up in the middle of the woods completely in the dark, like, no, like, blankets or anything, so of course she gets sick from it, and she has to get sent home, and it's, like, this whole big thing, right? And so I think that's, like, supposed to be, like, parallel of each other, the two stories are, but also, the whole entire thing reminded me, just, like, the vibe of it in general reminded me of, the book Haunting of Hill House. Just a thing. It kind of, like, reminded me of it. My themes I wrote down for it was tropes versus reality, and whatnot, the mind of a creative, and the memory connecting the past and the current, with, like, the stuff current being written on this lake, and the past being the Girl Scout on the lake, and how they were in parallel. That's my thoughts on that. That's everything on that one. That one was almost the same length as SVU one, but had a lot more happening in it that was actually important, and I was like, okay.
See, I really enjoyed this one. Did I really understand the ending? No, but there was something so particular about this that I really, really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars, I think.
I gave it 3.
Yeah, 4
which is
stars.
more than I gave Haunting of Hill House, so, you know.
I liked Haunting of Hill House, I think. It's been a few years.
I
read it the same year I read Girls of the Thorn.
We should watch the show.
Wait, it's always been meaning to, but I haven't.
I prefer Bly Manor, but...
Well, we can watch both of them together.
Okay. I will cry while we watch Bly Manor, don't worry. Every time I watch it, I cry.
I'm seriously, there's something so specific about this, and the vibes are so, I feel like they're so different from the rest of them, even if they are still similar. Does that make sense? Because I feel like all these stories have an overarching similar vibe because of her writing style, but there's still something so distinct and different about this one.
I think
And there's similarly, there's something
okay.
distinct and different about the mothers, but in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yes. But I also do not know how to explain it, so I'm gonna drink my water.
I like how detached this one felt as well. Yeah, this one and Mothers and Husband Stitch were my favorites.
The Husband Stitch and what's the second one? Inventory were my favorites.
The Resident, at the end there, kind of in the middle and stuff, it actually did kind of creep me out a little bit. I think that's why I liked it so much. Because I don't get, like, that uncomfortable that easily anymore. So when I do, it's like, oh my god. Because, like, the last thing that made me uncomfortable and, like, creeped out when I was reading was House of Salt and Sorrows. I think it has to do with the atmosphere. I know it is. It's just the atmosphere of everything. Because for example, House of Salt and Sorrows and this, it's not, like, scary. It's just the idea and the atmosphere that's, like, so solid that it, like, you know.
That reminds me, I keep on wanting to recommend.
Especially because I can't see things in my head when I read.
Yes. Which reminds me, because I wanted to remind you of a book based off of To Be Devoured that you just reminded me of, which is Tender as the Flesh.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Don't worry, I've heard of it.
Cannibalism. It's like a thing where, like, you read it. It's like one of those things, one of those horror books where, like, it's a normal thing for these people in these people's lives, but as you as the reader, you're like, what the fuck? Because the whole entire thing is, like, them just eating people. Like, there's, like, some sickness with animals, and so you can't eat animal anymore, so you eat people, and people are now livestock, and all this stuff. But I think it's got a vibe you'd like. It's got, like, a slow, just monotone-ish vibe until, like, the last bit where you're like, excuse me?
I don't think I want to read another book about cannibalism though, so. Also, our wives are at the sea. Oh, it's thundering. Okay, our wives out of the sea. It has a cold vibe, like cold, wet, and slow, etc., and all that. So I thought I'd let you know about that. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Hey, Bestie, I have a question.
Yes.
Were you stressed while reading Legendborn?
Yes, I was. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's what I'm here for. My favorite part of watching that vlog was you being like, why do you like this? You don't like being stressed. You're stressed enough as it is, as it just being alive. Why do you like this? And then I'm just sitting there remembering me texting you, just hee hee.
Yeah.
Which, like, yeah. Also, I love it when you go from, Sal, I don't know how I feel about him, to going, I get it. Yeah.
No, it really was like a light switch that went off. At first I was like, okay, whatever. As I was with most characters, then I was like, I didn't have strong feelings about any of the characters until I did, you know. Are we gonna cover the last one?
Yes, we can cover the last one. Difficult at parties. I have thoughts about this one. This one, I contemplated rating 3.5 because it's fucking wild and there is a lot of sex in this one, and also insinuated assault.
Yeah. At first I didn't know what
It's never straight up said what happened to her, but like it starts with her driving home from the hospital with her boyfriend. I didn't write it down at the beginning, but I did write it down later on. Where did I write it down? Is it Paul?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is Paul. So she has like a bunch of bruises and all this stuff. Also, like, she won't touch her boyfriend. She's screaming a lot in nightmares. She makes sure that he locks the door multiple times. He wants her to move out of her place to a different place, somewhere safer. There's a police officer that's like looking into it, and they think they find a suspect, but like it's actually not the right person. And they believe that he's possibly left the state at this point. So it's like insinuated that's what it is, but never straight up said.
Yes.
So because of the distance between them and her wanting to be with him, she decides to order a porno off the internet and have it delivered to her house.
I don't know why that was the thought process.
I don't know either.
I guess.
I think it's hinted at that, like, I'll bring it up later because at one point when she's watching orgies just on her computer, and she's crying, he like apologizes. So I think it's like he wants her to watch him so that she can get back to herself where she desires and whatnot. And it's like, hello, hello, are you
I'm
okay,
not
sir?
sure
Do I
how
need
that
to
works.
stab you? Like, hello. Anyways, so when she's watching the porno, she hears weird phrases from it. So she turns it off. And she says that she's feeling sick. He wants him to visit friends that he has who just bought a house in the country, and she says she doesn't want to go. But he's like, but there will be no men there, and like I trust everyone there, and I'm like, I don't trust you at this point, sir. Okay. And then so she's like, I don't want to go. We're not going. And the next scene is her getting ready to go to this party that she didn't want to go to.
Real.
So as soon as she enters, there's this weird guy that never says a word who just watching her and follows her with his camcorder and all this stuff. Um, Throughout the whole night, she's just drinking a butt ton because Paul just leaves her on her own. Um, and there's like at one point, people are like asking her what she does and what's not, and she looks over and Paul is like being hit on by this other woman, and like he's like low key like turning down her advances, but also like not fully, like he's still letting them happen. And she just like gets real upset about this. At one point she goes to the coat room after that because she's like very stressed out. She's overwhelmed. She doesn't want to be here in this whole entire situation. She's having a lot of anxiety, so she goes into the bedroom that has been used as a coat room. And Jack and Jill, the house owners, they're throwing this party. Bang it. As soon as she leaves, goes back downstairs, drinks a bunch more. Uh, while at one point the guy with the camcorder does set it down because like it's too heavy to carry around all night long. So she takes it outside and puts it in her car. She just straight up
I
kills it.
like I know she was drunk, but like I was like, okay, go off, I guess.
Yeah. While driving home, Paul's like, "Did you have a good time?" And she just straight up starts hysterically laughing, being like, "No,
She was
what
so over that.
a mood." That is, I related to her too much at that point where Paul's like, but like people liked you, liked you and all this stuff, and she's like, but why? Like I didn't do anything. I didn't really talk to anyone. I didn't really like. I did the basic like answering the what do you do for work and stuff, but like that's it. Like I just sat there and ate shrimp and drank a lot of alcohol and didn't have and watched you be hit on by another woman. Like, excuse me? Which is like a
Mhm.
vibe. I get it. Okay. And he's like going to work and he has his own apartment, but he's like staying with her to like make sure she's okay and all this stuff. Um, but he's going to work, and while he's at work, she orders another porno off the internet because obviously the first one's broken because she was hearing the voices, right? So she puts that one in, and she's hearing the voices again, and she's like, something's wrong. So she like unplugs the VCR or DVD player, or whatever, and goes to the news where she's also hearing the voices, and she's like, what the hell? So she or no, she doesn't hear it when she watches the news. Ignore that. But she says the TV's broken. He is like, want me to fix it? And she's like, yeah. So she plugs it in to show him how it's broken, and she's like, don't you hear the voices? And he's like, no. And she starts freaking out at her for having changed and all this stuff, and she's just there. And she's like, don't get angry at me. And he's like, then pulls her up against him, and he's like, I'm so sorry, and all this stuff. Yeah. Um, so at around this time, he brings up the fact that she like thrashes around a lot in her sleep. So, which is like a new thing for her. So she sets up the camcorder that she stole in her room to watch her while she sleeps, and so she can play it back. At what point she does like see that she is like actually thrashing around. She like to the point where she falls out of the bed, and then Paul has to come over and like get her up and back into the bed, and he's like trying to hold her comfortably, but like also like she's like actually punching him in the chest, like trying to get him to leave her alone and all this stuff. In her sleep. Yeah. Um. Also, she asks him to just be a good man, and he just looks sad.
Yeah, that part was kind of like I don't know. I'm sorry. Like I just this one was like I don't know. Continue.
Since there's something wrong with all the porno she orders to the house, right? She decides to just watch porn instead online, like a normal person would have done from the beginning, but not important. But she can still hear the voices. So she's realizing she's hearing the thoughts of the people in the recordings as the recordings are happening, right? One of the woman's thoughts in one of the recordings gives her a trauma flashback, causing her to have a breakdown. She like throws her computer against the wall, and she just starts screaming. And Paul comes running down up from the basement. Is like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" She's just like, "Fucking leave me alone. I need to be on my own." And until she calms down. And then like I don't know how much time passes, but at this point she's now watching orgies because normal porn is not enough. Um, you know how it is. Um, and Paul finds her watching them in bed, and she's just sitting there like watching them, but like not watching them. She's listening to what they're thinking because that's what's interesting to her, right? I get it. I get it. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And she says she's doing what she's supposed to be doing, watching. Then she starts crying. I assume to what someone like thinks about in the porno. And he stands her up and holds her against him again as she's crying. And he's like, "I'm so sorry. You don't have to do this. I'm so sorry. We don't have to do this. All this stuff." And he feels like really bad. And so I think it's like him forcing her to watch them so that she gets her sex drive back, so they can be together again. And he eventually realizes this is bad for her. It takes him, however long, you think he would have realized it when she had the breakdown, but what do we know? Um, and so he's saying that he's sorry, and she says, "Why are you sorry? You don't even want to be here," which makes him feel bad, and so she decides to initiate sex for them. But then the next scene, she has set up the camcorder to look over the bed again, so that she can record them having sex, so that she can listen to what he's thinking, so she knows what he's thinking, and that's how it ends. We never know what he's thinking, but like she can hear what he's thinking now too. And so the themes of this one are obviously how trauma changes someone and how trauma affects a relationship. I almost rated this one 4 stars too. This one was pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I realized what this one was about. Obviously, it's obviously not the same, but it's, you can pick it up very easily, but, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any more thoughts, Busty, so.
I don't think I have any more thoughts either. It is a book. It is a good time. You will probably at least, if you like gothic horror, you will at least like one of them. So.
Yeah.
And the rest of them are just fine.
I think it's just because I think a big impact on why they're just fine is placement.
Yeah. Yeah, no. A lot of it was editing. Which I get, because it is, when I was looking it up, like the publisher and stuff for my like book tracker and whatnot, the publisher is not only a indie publisher, but it's an indie nonprofit. So also in her acknowledgments, that stuff, she thanks all of her writing teachers she ever had. And let me just like list off some of these: Cassandra Clare, Holly Black,
Oh.
Ted Chiang, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, which, if I remember properly, is the guy who wrote the short story that Arrival is based off of.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Respectfully, I only see how one of these people correlate that you've mentioned.
Same, and it's him.
Yeah.
Dude, I was wondering because I think I have 2 of his short story collections on my TBR. I was wondering if this is the one with the story that Arrival's based off of. And then I scroll down and it says more editions, and it has like all the different covers of all the different editions. And one of them is just the poster for Arrival, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is the one. The way that movie came out when I was a junior in high school.
How old was I? What year did it come out?
2016.
I was like 12, 13.
Apparently he went to Brown University? What?
I don't know why that was surprising to you. I don't know anything about schools.
It's like a very upper school. And he has a degree in computer science, and he works as a technical writer in the software industry.
Okay, this team is at 5 minutes, so we got any more thoughts?
Not really. I was just gonna say, if we ever do another short story collection for this podcast, it will probably be that one, just so we can talk about the movie Arrival.
Okay, that's chill. I'm almost a quarter way through one of the next books for the podcast. Is that one of the extra ones? Is that one is I Wish You All the Best? That one's an extra one, technically, right?
Yes.
So I'm a quarter way through that almost. So
I think
about to
that
make brownies,
one
apparently.
is the one after this one.
Yeah.
And then the one after
I think
that
I'm just gonna go ahead and do them in order. So.
Yeah. But yes, after this episode is the second book in the Wicked Villain series, Learn My Lesson. I am currently still 11% into it. And then...
You really need to finish that, bestie.
I know. And then the one after that is I Wish You All the Best. Listen, technically that episode doesn't go out for over a week, so it's fine.
Listen, I don't know. My brain is so far ahead. I'm so far ahead. I don't know what's going on with you. Sorry. I'm already playing my TBS for July, bestie. I don't know what's going on. I think I'm having issues in my head, you know? I'm not questioning it.
Okay. But yeah, that's this short story collection. Good time. I don't know if I actually like short story collections, because I've only read one other one, and I thought that one was fine too, so.
I've only read one, but I don't think they're gonna be for me, but I will try it, just to see, because I think I have a couple on my TBR.
I don't think I have many on mine. I think the only other ones I have is by Ted, Chiang, so.
Any more unhinged thoughts and opinions that don't have to do with the podcast, but we're gonna leave them in anyways?
Bella. There are two Bellas in you. One is gay. The other one is also gay. I just said that one. I sent that one to Christine last night, and Christine was laughing. So.
Good.
Because I sent the original photo to Christine, and then I was like, this is the meme.
I did amazingly at that meme.
You really did. I laughed at it all the time.
Just for you too, so.
I pull it up on my phone sometimes to just laugh.
Good. I'm glad I left that impact.
We all know I need extra serotonin.
Yes.
Alright. Goodbye.
Bye, bestie. I'm gonna go make brownies.
And you're not gonna share?
I will share.
You how?
In spirit. Well, come over.
Oh yeah, let me run across the whole entire country real fast.
It'll just take you, it'll take you even longer than me, respectfully. So I would say about 7 to 10 business days for you to get here.
God, that business days. Oh my goodness. Okay, I guess I'll go read gay books then.
Good, that's a good idea, bestie.